Okay, we should be live here. Get my monitors adjusted. Into a new solid fill. And we're just going to start painting in over these. Looking pretty good so far, just black. All right, what do we got here? Let me change my brush. I got this little wispy brush there. We gotta swap it out for something a little more chunky. I don't know about that. The color jitter is a little bit off to me. So you may have seen in the thumbnail I've been playing with midjourney a bit, the AI art generator. I think there's got to be a better way to word that. I think it's more like a procedural adaptation of an archive of imagery. Yeah, probably AI is just a faster way of saying that. We can't all just stroke our mustache and talk our artisty talk. Sometimes you just gotta get something done. So midjourney, I've been throwing in these different kind of prompts. You know, my whole exploration with it is to kind of figure out what it has to offer for artists. I think it's an excellent analytical tool, and perhaps a tool you might be interested in for self training and analysis. You know, if you're throwing in prompts and then putting in an artist's name or a style or you know, whatever it is that you're utilizing to get your results, and then interpret that and ask, okay, does that accurately represent that artist, the hallmarks of their style? And I think if so, and in many cases it does, then you have an opportunity to analyze that and see, okay, what is it picking up on, the relationships between this artist's compositional choices and color choices. Are they utilizing line or color or shape, or like what is it that's making this read as their style, even though it's not? It's a procedurally generated thing. Oh, we got Cameron in the chat. Welcome. Good to see you. Sorry I missed the conversation the other day. Every time that happens, I'm like, oh, maybe we'll do another one, and I can join in that, and it's like, 6 months later. Yeah, so AI. So what I'm thinking with this is, I think it's great for analysis. I think it can be beneficial for generating ideas or laying in a base. Just doing something really quick. Because it is very fast, and it does build off of a whole, kind of library of imagery. And if you give it a prompt that's directed towards what you kind of where you're headed, then it could potentially save some time, kind of blocking some things in, or like I said before, with the art style analysis. I think there's some potential there when you're, mashing up styles and artists and approaches, that it would be interesting to input those keywords and see if it can present some kind of coherent mashup between artists. Not always. But I imagine these things will only get better. We're kind of just seeing the beginning of it. Anyway, the most recent thing I've been playing with, and this is, based on what one of my friends, an artist, Matt Waggle, is doing with AI, is to put in some poetry, that sort of thing, and kind of give it just a much looser prompt, less, tightly directed, and just kind of seeing where it goes with it. And you can kind of understand some of the choices that it makes, again, as like an analytical type thing. But some things I've been putting in there are like, passages, biblical passages, particularly, the ones that are a little more apocalyptic and interesting, kind of paraphrases that you could, well, not paraphrases, metaphors, things you could interpret different ways, and the more interesting dream chapters where the writers are trying to describe what they've seen. And anyway, some of those have been pretty cool. Some of the results, I mean, it took a little bit of work to get past the, like, I hate to say it, but there's kind of a lower, well, I know it's going to sound judgmental to say there's a lower form of art, but there is some either marketing type art or what would the term be? Kind of just religiously motivated, but not particularly trained or expertly trained. And so you kind of have to get past some of the AI results that seem to lean on that kind of training, or those kind of images that it would pull from. And then you find some of the more classic stuff, and you can kind of shortcut that by inputting artist names and stuff that have already done these sort of things. So, excuse me. So in one case I did Frederick Edwin Church, who did these kind of apocalyptic scenes that were pretty awesome. I mean, very well painted, and also just really interesting in terms of their abstractness. And just like there'd be like a scene. Well, I don't even know what I'm doing here with this sketch. I'm just talking. The scene would be, like you'd have a valley, and then there's like this cloud, but it's like this, it's like bending up and over and like raining back down, you know, doom into the valley or whatever. And but like just the way that it was depicted, it could be perceived as like, you know, almost like Inception, you know, when the city kind of folds in on itself, like. So anyway, there were artists painting, you know, these fantastic things like that forever ago, and doing an awesome job, you know, in terms of execution on it. And so if you could find these examples and bring them in, then you'll get more interesting kind of apocalyptic results. Though, okay, so what am I even getting at? So I was playing with that, and I got some pretty cool ones. I'll show them in a minute here. And I thought they were pretty inspiring. You know, or at least they give me ideas, and you can interpret them in different ways, you know, which is kind of fun. And one of the ideas I was playing with, there's this passage that says that there will be a new heaven and a new earth created, and the old will pass away. And in this new city, you know, there will be no sun, and the thirsty will be, will give water to the thirsty from a river with no end. Okay. And then, so I throw that in the prompt, and it comes up with these interesting results. And then it gave me one where it's like this kind of epic apocalyptic scene, and like there's a figure in the center that's holding up a Dasani water bottle. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's hilarious that it, you know, has no idea what it's doing, but it's it's making associations, right? And some of those are just hilarious. All right, we're really making a mess now. We're going to start blending some of these together. Let's do sample all layers, and that'll bring in some of that black from the background, for better or for worse. Checking out the chat. Waggle Wisdom. Yeah, Matt Waggle. Would like to hear more about his take on the AI thing. He's posted some very interesting stuff. Yeah, we've been talking about it and kind of sharing our results and experiments with each other. I don't know, you know, I can't speak for him, but you know, I think the jury's still out. I think we're just like figuring out what this thing can do and trying to like plug it into different parts of the pipeline, you know. For midjourney, the developers have a open or office hours where they'll just talk about what they're doing, and they'll, you know, have a bunch of people ask questions and that sort of thing. And anyway, today they were talking about expanding its capabilities to do alpha and that sort of stuff. And I think it would be really interesting to see some of these systems trained on like normal maps or height maps, or not necessarily height maps. What's the one I'm thinking of? Like a depth map, you know, because I think you could use some of those to generate more interesting things. if you plug them into a pipeline. So I think they're kind of torn between the fact that their audience is like partly artists who are interested in the potential of this tool, if not afraid of it, and like feel like they've just got to get in because it's inevitable, so you've got that group, and then you've got kind of the layman that wants to see cool art or cool imagery, at least, without hiring an artist. It's like they kind of want to see magic happen and feel like their hand is responsible for it, which, I can be dismissive and kind of downplay that. But I really do think that that's a huge part of it. Is, someone described it, one of the people asking questions today described it as a dopamine hit, and it really is. I think when you're like searching for something, it's kind of like, when you get on social media or whatever, you're like looking for some kind of cool nugget or gem or something that's gonna like make the experience worth it. And you pull the lever, it's like the rat pulling the lever, and you get through a whole bunch of trash, and then finally something cool pops up, and you're like, yeah, that's why I came. And then you start looking for more, and it's like that, only it's much more likely that you'll actually find something cool with these AI generators, because you're inputting something that you want to see. It may not exist, or not in any new, fresh way. And sometimes you get these absurdities, sometimes you get these hilarious things, and sometimes it just gives you something that is cool. It's like there's like this little, it's almost magical, and so I think that's a part of it, is that like the layman wants to be a part of the magical creation process, and I have mixed feelings about that, for sure. Like I think that's not great for artists. I don't think that it's great for people who want to engage with art and creating things. I think it will be beneficial, like I said, in certain like pipelines, or in certain with certain limitations, as far as like your stated goal. Like I want to see this type of thing so that I can utilize it for whatever. But when it comes to like being creative, letting the thing be creative for you is it's only going to make your creative muscles weaker, I think. And so I think while it invites the non-artist into the artistic process, it also prevents them from ever really experiencing it in a weird way. It's like, it's just kind of like cheap. Well, I don't want to call it cheap, but like in the same way that social media is like artificial social interaction, it's like there's something there, and it serves a purpose, and it does things that you can't do in person, but it can't do it can't do what a face-to-face interaction will do. It just can't. It's not the same. So anyway, I'm not trying to be that philosophical guy or be dismissive about it. I think that the tech is here. We got to figure out how to best utilize it, and what are responsible uses of it and what aren't. But there will be plenty of opportunity for failure along the way. For us to like, it's like fast food or factory farming or whatever. It's like there's all kinds of things that are like, they've got their benefits, and then they present their whole new set of problems. How are the 3D projects going? Let me show you something cool. I don't know if I did this the other day or not, but I've been working on, sorry, that was kind of a jump. I read that in the chat. All right. I have been working on learning Substance Painter. So this is the tank, and I'm playing with a couple things here. Like, one is to learn the tool and to work on it for game and digital assets. But the other nice thing is, like, you see these decals here and stuff. These are decals that we actually have for the models, and the models are, of course, are like 4 centimeters tall. And we scaled these by like just using calipers and going on the printed 3D printed model. And if we want to do variations and stuff, it's potentially going to save us some time and headaches to get these things mapped out in a virtual space, and then figure out, dimensionally, we know we have all this stuff measured out, and so we can figure out, okay, that's I don't remember off the top of my head, but like, let's say that this is probably 4 or 5 centimeters across, or 5 millimeters across. So then that gives us a true scale for how large this decal needs to be, and we can mock it up and see exactly what it's, well, very closely what it's going to look like, in 3D space. So yeah, that's been the exploration with 3D lately. There's more I'd like to do with 3D modeling for Fantastic Tanks. Like, I've just got a ton of ideas that I need to get out, but unfortunately, it's a busy season, and so it's really difficult to justify taking the time to jump into more like experimental stuff. I mean, we're balancing a whole bunch of things. So with Fantastic Tanks, there's I'm not really ready to announce it quite yet, but there's projects that we've been working on for months, really, that would be nice to get to the point where we can show that, get it to a presentable stage. And along with that are some needs for new models and whatnot, but it's not so pressing. It'll come in time. So, I've got to practice some discipline in terms of where do I need to focus my efforts. And as much as I'm like itching to do that, it's not time yet. But it is nice to be able to work with the existing 3D models with Substance Painter, and hopefully that'll help us push the later ones further along. One of the things I really want to do with Fantastic Tanks is get in there and start doing some prefab pieces. And some of those would be functional, and some of them would just be aesthetic. Yeah, get those prefabs going so that there's a lot of things that are just, okay, this is a hatch, or this is a panel line, or this is a row of fasteners or whatever. And some of those things I already have. For example, I've got the railings and I've got the treads, and the fasteners are already done. So those are things that it's geometry that we can just kind of like insert and play with. But there's definitely more to do, and there's more kind of standardization along with that I'd like to do. it's kind of boring to talk about. It'd be cooler if I could, you know, maybe we'll do some of that stuff on a stream when I'm able. Looking at the chat, I went back on the stream and really liked the idea of starting with background and working your way to the foreground. I'm going to give it a try. Adorable looking tank. Thank you. Yeah, we like the tanks. Check those out. That's fantastictanks.com. Those are that's a project I've been working on for a couple of years now, and actually I've got 3 other guys working with me on it. Yeah, I'm excited about the possibilities of where that can go and what we're doing with it. We've been we started with it as like an artistic thing, just like this will just be a fun, like you said, they're adorable. I think they're funny. Not everyone finds them funny, but that's okay. Not everyone's our audience. But anyway, yeah, those tanks were, I don't know, it was just like this little idea that I was playing with years ago, and they just made me chuckle every time I saw them, and so I just wanted to like turn that into something real. And so the beginning of that, all we really cared about was getting the idea in like a tangible format, so we started with illustrations and paintings, and then we did the 3D models and 3D printed some of those. We took it to a illustration convention, and it was really well received. Excuse me, there. And a lot of people who interacted with it, they tended to think of it as like game pieces, because the size of them were excuse me, the size and the content, it's kind of just right up the alley with with like Warhammer type stuff and war gaming, but with like a funnier kind of edge to it. And we've been playing with that, those suggestions, but we'll get to that. And so what we did in the meantime, we developed a few more models, and once we started, posting those online and stuff, we were most well received by the toy photography community, because here's a community that like they see something cool, and mini, and they know exactly what they want to do with it. They want to set up a scene and make a cool looking photograph. And so lately we've kind of been catering more to that audience, because they've been so receptive of it. And so we made a larger version of the tanks. We made some decals and stuff to just to really make them easier to photograph and like just more interesting. How to describe it? Like, when you take a photograph, it's a little different than like holding the model in your hand. When you hold it in your hand, I think it's sufficient. Like just the like funny tank design is sufficient. And when you're seeing it on the computer as well, you get like the illustration, and there's kind of more to like round it out. When you are making your own scene with it, then you want enough to like have the whole experience be engaging and complete in that one image, right? And so I do think it requires a little bit more, like a little higher fidelity detail. And so part of that is the model itself, and that's why we went larger. That also makes it easier with most accessible lenses that people have, to be able to photograph a little bit larger. The small ones can be tricky. You've got to have a little bit of extra ability and equipment to photograph very tiny things. And so anyway, that's where we've been leaning for the past frankly, about 2 years. And yeah, it is growing slowly but surely. I gotta keep reminding myself of this mantra. With all of my work, I get kind of grumpy with the social media sites and kind of playing the game. Like, you gotta appease the algorithm and the companies that are stealing your data and making your life miserable in general, especially when you're like trying to deal with them on the business side, like having a business account on Facebook or Instagram. I won't complain about it, but it's not great. But anyway, when you're doing that, you just get so frustrated, and you feel like, man, I'm making the artwork. I want to show people, and I've got to like do this extra dance to to get past the gatekeeper, I guess. Anyway, so I just keep reminding myself, no, we're just going to go slow, honest growth. Make the art, we're going to show people, and that's it. I'm going to zoom in on this. I kind of want to see it farther back, but let's see if we can draw some shapes out of this. Yeah, so that's Fantastic Tanks. Sorry, you mention it, and I'm gonna start monologuing because that's my baby. I like to talk about my babies. So yeah, check that out. It's fantastictanks.com. Pick up a Fantastic Tank today. What were we talking about before I got obsessed with tanks? It's a cool project. I wish you success. Thanks. Thank you. Right before that you said, I like the tank with the hat turned backwards. Interesting concept. Never thought of tanks as adorable. Right. That's why I think it, I don't know, there's something there. They're definitely characters. That's the idea. The tanks are the characters in the story. It's not just not a vehicle. Yeah, I'm so tempted to just talk about all the things we've been developing, but it's some of them, and this is just a part of the creative world, is you make stuff that you think is awesome and you fall in love with, and then you've got to lay it on the altar and say, is this in line with what this thing is and ought to be? And sometimes you just gotta let some things go. And so that's why I am reluctant to jump into all of the things we've been developing, because they're not all going to make it. Some of those things are just going to have to either not see the light of day or find another project to have a home in. I would love for everything to be implemented, but that's just not the way that it goes. You have to make the thing make sense and be simple enough to grasp immediately. An audience should be able to look at it and know what they're getting into. I don't want people to be, I don't want to completely hold people's hands, but I don't think that you should be confused when you look at something like that. So, in order to tell that story and get it to work, not everything's going to make it in. Crying artist tears. Real manly artist tears right now. Not all the art babies are going to make it to the promised land. Silence for emphasis. Emphasis. Let me do like a little reflection type thing here. So here's a thought. I was talking about AI art and how it's going to potentially make us dumber, regardless of how useful the tool may be. Tools can make us lazy. Some of that's okay, because there are some things we might be okay with never needing to know how to do again. But some of that will weaken us as individuals, and I think we need to pay attention to that. And so I was thinking about this, right now, as I'm kind of blocking in some pretty rough reflections here. I was thinking, as my 6-year-old was doing her math assignments this morning, one of the things that she was doing was kind of graphing out these patterns and then reflecting them. And I thought that was kind of an interesting exercise. This is kind of a different math program. Obviously, she is a wee little child, but it's a different. The math curriculum is it's pretty well regarded, and it's kind of a different way of approaching things. And I am paying attention to what they're doing to see, that's interesting, the way that they're kind of approaching some of these concepts differently, so that the children build a kind of a different foundation, a different conceptual understanding of these things. So anyway, the reflection exercise, as I'm looking at that, I'm thinking that's really interesting, because that's partly like a spatial thing, and it's partly a detail oriented thing, and it's a relationship thing. And then that got me thinking about midjourney, that like part of what this thing is doing is making relational assessments between things. And that's an ability that we should have. I'm not saying that AI shouldn't have that, but if it's at the cost of us losing that ability, then let us rethink that. Because it's hard to know how valuable these things are. You just think, oh yeah, like everyone knows. Like as she's doing the exercise, she was having such a hard time with it the other week, because the program has her doing it, kind of repeatedly. So she was doing it last week, and then she was doing it today. And I was thinking, this is so easy. Like, why is this? I mean, you just don't feel like doing it? Is that why, And then I got thinking, I'm like, no, actually, this is, these are skills that you build over time. And this is a whole, perhaps rabbit trail, but the idea of AI art interpreting, or really not even AI art, let's just say AI in general, interpreting the world, or interpreting the world that we give it, right? So we've done machine learning AI for video games, or for like chess, or for Go, these different games. And so that's kind of this closed system. And then in an open system, in like robotics or whatever, where it's looking at the real world. Even art, I would say, is it's relatively a closed system because it's just all the JPEG flat images on on the internet, and obviously that will change over time. That'll expand to perhaps 3D, and I'm sure there's already kind of live video, machine learning. But anyway, I think we don't realize how much it takes, or rather we are just beginning to realize how much it takes for us to understand the world around us, and to make these associations and interpretations of things. Like, I was thinking about identifying a bear, for example. My kids had a little bear toy out on the counter, and I pointed to it to my baby. He's just a year old, and I said, "That's a bear." And then I got thinking, well, that's a chewed up tiny toy bear. So to teach him that that's a bear is technically incorrect. Now, I'm sorry. I don't know why my brain goes like this, but that got me thinking. I'm like, well, that's interesting. He'll make these associations of this form is a bear, even though this is a man-made interpretation of what that thing is. It's not even close to anything resembling a real bear. But I guess it's got the color down and it's got the general form down, right? Maybe if you're lucky, if it's a good toy, they've got the gesture down, So then that got me thinking, okay, so my children will understand or learn to understand, this idea of a bear is there are different kinds of bears, and you view these things at different angles and at different levels of maturity, and from the cub to the mama bear, right? And to make those associations and train an AI on that, I think we're coming to realize just how complex our own development is. And for example, my brother was working with someone who was training AI machine learning systems for work, and for his home, he had developed this machine learning thing to identify, I think it was cardinals. It's just a camera set up in the yard, and it would check to see, if a bird came in, and then it would attempt to identify it. And it got pretty good, but then it would also, you have to give it these different associations, and then it would associate, say, a cardinal at a, whether it's male or female, you get, different, they have different codes and patterns, right? And at different ages as well, it might resemble another bird at the right angle, right? And the AI would be wrong. And of course, we do the same thing. We're saying, oh, that's a cardinal, and it's not, But then, a part of the issue with that was like, now the thing has to relearn, kind of learn how to fail too. You know, it's like you have to make it. Well, you may have to manually tell it, and like, no, that is not a cardinal, right? And then it has to reassess its life and its learning, its upbringing, right? Like, well, I thought it was, so where did I go wrong, right? And I know I'm like kind of telling this in a layman's stupid terminology, but that's the story of how that thing, you know, what he actually had to do with this thing, and that ends up being kind of a roadblock, you know, or rather a new hurdle you've got to get over is like retraining something without completely losing that data set, because then it's going to throw it out as like, well, that was not a cardinal, so I got to throw away this data set that was somehow associated with me misinterpreting this, right? Though saying all that makes me think that might be something that people are really bad at, tossing our bad data sets. Okay, I'm going to go back to the chat. Kenny says, your art looks like AI art. You know, I was thinking there's going to be a time, especially if I'm suggesting that AI art is beneficial as a learning tool and an analytical tool. Wouldn't it be interesting if instead of replacing artists, it replaced art educators, and then people would have like a house style, like, oh, like I'm a Dali artist, or I'm a midjourney artist, or whatever, you know, like, okay, this is my brain is going to these absurd possibilities of the future. Okay, Cameron says, I think as long as we look at AI art as a tool, it should work out, but there will definitely be some big changes in the industry, for sure. Yeah, just like 3D printing changed everything. And 3D printing, again, is like just barely getting started. You know, that there's, you know, CNC and all kinds of stuff that have been around for a long time that have greater capabilities. It's kind of a higher price point in terms of production. But accessible to the common, you know, the general market, 3D printing has really changed a lot of things. And AI art is going to change a lot of things. So we gotta roll with it, figure out what's going on, and utilize it well. Pencil lead, like someone I know recently pointed out, how we are feeding AI visual recognition cues with CAPTCHAs, ironically, to prove we're not robots. Yeah. The whole thing is like, well, I don't know. We're like in this strange web where it's all kind of tied together, back and forth, you know. I was talking with a computer engineer friend of mine about AI art, and I was talking about how I presume these things to be trained off of you know, just a huge libraries of images and metadata based on those images. And he was like, well, actually, most of the metadata, like, this is a tree, that's a soccer ball, that's a, you know, whatever, is generated by image recognition. So that's software doing the recognizing and then talking to the, you know, in the metaphoric sense, when a neural net is trained on a set of images, you know, its pool that it's learning from could be procedural. You know, a lot of that could be procedural in terms of its understanding of what things are, right? So I'm sure the rabbit hole goes deeper and is more twisted and interconnected. All right, back to the chat. I think we are headed towards a future where instead of an algorithm seeking material for a specific use user's feed, we will have it generate content for the individual's feed. Training database sets requires a lot of data on humans to test and make the associations. The issue right now is that the humans, general testers, aren't specialists. Yeah, that's an interesting issue with, you know, that Midjourney's going through, and really all of these. It's like, what exactly do you want this AI to do? You know, is this just like, I want to see something generate photographic images, right? Because we've been through that before, right? Like, the camera changed the way that painters could monetize their work and give perceived value to their work. You know, it's like, I create these images from nothing, and it's like, well, I can create a exact representation of that image with a camera. So that value that you bring to the table is now found in another avenue, right? So if this is to be an imaginative thing, you know, AI creates images that have never been seen before based on you know, your prompt or whatever. You know, I think that's a reasonable aim for these things. I do think obviously there's challenges associated with that. Not the least that, like, the way that these things are trained, you end up with like that kind of deja vu, like, seen this before kind of effect. And again, coming back to, like, what's the purpose of this? What are we trying to make? What are we trying to accomplish with this thing? If it is to create believable images, you're going to have to train it off of real things. If it's to create fantastical images, you're going to have to, like, define what is reality and give some kind of direction to this thing to, you know, how to come up with something different. And I think that's gonna be, I think that's a tall order. I don't really know how to describe that other than, like, it's almost like an oxymoron to say that we're gonna create a neural net, an artificial intelligence that will make these things so that we don't have to, right? So that the machine is the director of the process, and then you have inherently in the design of what you're trying to build, you have to direct it to do so. I think you're going to end up seeing kind of like house styles for AI. I don't know. I'm sure these things are. I'm sure I'm like 10 steps behind the developers' conversations and tests, and, you know, where they're headed with these things. But right now, like what I was saying with Midjourney, is that you have these different groups that want to utilize it for different things, but then they also, just by nature of having different expectations for where it's headed and what they need or want to use it for, you're going to want it to be trained differently. You know, one of the artists on the Q&A today was saying that you know, I'm paraphrasing, you know, so this is not going to be the, whatever, it's not the way that he said it, but not really being interested in these kind of standard or established ideas of beauty, you know, the supposed rule of thirds or, you know, compositional motifs that end up getting used, like, you know, he's looking to explore other things. Okay, and I get that. And so, because that's what he cares about in his work, that's what he wants Midjourney to be and do. To point it away from, you know, the art school definition of beauty and good design. Okay, and then, you know, someone else who's say not an architect but wants a cool architectural design, they're probably going to need something that that's got a little theory behind it. It's got a little you know, structure, you know, no pun intended, but is it's got a little more kind of history and understanding to how it's created, and not just completely random, you know, or not intentionally being that kind of avant-garde. Using the big art words here. Sorry, everyone, but you know what I'm saying. The unfortunate issue on the latest build was that it got a lot better at likenesses, and you just had all these kind of like, almost just like a meme generator is what it turned into. Just, you know, I saw one today. It was Donald Trump and the Queen. No, was it Donald Trump? No, it was Ronald Reagan and the Queen meet in hell, you know, and it's like, okay, guys, we're going to use this like state-of-the-art technology that, you know, who knows where it's going, but we're just going to make like just low political, kind of just trashy content, you know, and that's not even the worst of it. There's been plenty of terrible stuff off of that that's no bueno. I don't know. Clearly, I've got a love-hate relationship with this thing. It's like, I love to play with it. I love to see these results that come out, like just the weird stuff. I mean, just the thumbnail of this stream, you know, right now was one of those weird ones with the giving water to the thirsty, and it's like a Dasani water bottle. You know, I find it funny, you know, amusing, and so anyway, here I am trying to justify what I think is cool about it, and then at the same time be like, no, but I want to make art. I want me to be the hand that creates. I'm really curious where the heads of current art students are with this. You know, I would think some may be disheartened and some may be excited. But you know what? Those are just my assumptions. I would like to hear if we have any current art students. Back to the chat. The camera steered art an interesting direction. Postmodern abstractions, modern expressionism. Where do you think AI art will steer current art? Man, I'm reluctant to just shoot from the hip on that one. get a drink of water. You know, delay till I come up with something. No, I haven't got a good answer for you. I have no idea. I think it will make commercial art faster. I was listening to another stream, Michael Pavlovich. I may be mispronouncing that. But he was talking about the potential for AI art to cause commercial work to be cheaper, not less expensive, lower quality. And I don't think he was just being dismissive of AI art as, you know, like, oh, that's not real art, that's not a real person, you know, whatever. I don't think that's really his take. I think he was saying we have a threshold for what's acceptable. We'll give some examples. You can go to Walmart and buy a mug for like $2. My dad has made this argument. Like, I love ceramics, and I love handmade stuff. And for some people, it's just utility. You know, why would I spend $35 on a bowl when I could buy a set of bowls for $10? You know, whatever it is. I don't know. I haven't been to Walmart in a long time. Out of protest. Maybe. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't go if I don't have to. But it's a valid point, right? You know, it's like, okay, it's made this it's made it a commodity and not a relationship with an artist. And even then, well, actually that is okay. These are kind of different thoughts I'm trying to piece together here. I think the relationship between the buyer and the artist, I believe that actually became stronger with more commercial forms. For example, pottery being one. Not that long ago, you would have to get your vessels for utility from a pottery shop. There'd probably be one in a town that's got access to clay. And we were just looking at one the other day that was kind of near the Erie Canal, so it's kind of convenient, right? So you make pottery, you've got your resources local, and then you send it down the canal, ship it out, right? I don't think that the relationship between the creators of those vessels, the pottery, and the relationship between those and the consumer was considered an artistic relationship. I think it was utility. This is something that is going to hold water or hold flour or whatever it is that I need. And I'll value it because it can shatter. I want to take care of it because I don't want to buy a new one. Right? I don't think they were just astounded by these potters as, having this great ability. So I think that the industrialization of those things actually helped the artist in terms of the perceived value of what the artist can do. Now, our threshold for what we accept as for pottery, I think is lower now. It's just like we just get these really basic forms, mass produced, and we're okay with that. It's kind of what we want. We want cheap, right? Affordable, generally speaking. And so, while it is very difficult to be a potter and make a living doing that, the value of what you're doing, it has become a relationship with a human hand. That's what people are interested in. It's like, I want to buy this because I want something made by human hands. And I want to look at this and think about creativity and feel good. And if you know the artist, maybe you want to think about the relationship with the artist, right? And so I think AI art could do that potentially. I think that it will make things a lot cheaper, particularly for production of movies and games and that sort of thing. There's a lot of things that it will do that either can do it faster than us, or we just won't want to do it. However, there's a threshold of just acceptable quality level, and I think this is what Mike was talking about. I think he was saying whatever is acceptable is what will ship. And the artistry will be left to the artists, right? The amount of stuff that we see already, and I don't know, I want to be careful about this because there's a lot of stuff that I just don't care for. I guess we'll just go ahead and name it. For example, the Transformers movies. Not the highest form of digital art design. I mean, even in those, and I actually remember listening to a talk with one of the artists that worked on those, and he was just talking about the turnaround, just how quickly you had to create this stuff, and how if you're in this industry, you got to be fast and all that kind of stuff, and you learn these different tricks for being fast, and that's true, and there's a value in speed, and it also can potentially show in the work, that using that as an example, a lot of the designs were already done. You got Optimus Prime and Bumblebee and all these different characters that we had as kids. Those the forms and the characters and the ideas were like that. It's already been done, and I'm not saying there wasn't any artistry or any positive additions. I'm not saying that at all. However, particularly like the technical, greebles, when they transformed and turned into different, one machine into another. That was just so. To me, it just looked rushed. It just looked like just totally random fiddly bits spinning and just way too much stuff and sharp blades and whatever. And so yeah, I know I'm being super critical of that. But I think that's the kind of thing that we'll end up seeing with AI art, is just, hey, this is like bare minimum to get the effect. And so that's good enough. That's what we'll go with, ship it. And then I think we'll see stuff. I think it'll be a little more rare and a little more expensive for a human artist to develop new things. And I could be proven completely wrong, you know? Again, I'm kind of just shooting from the hip on this and thinking about what it could potentially do. I think that lost my train of thought. I think sometimes. I think that AI could potentially be creative, be generative, like make things that that one of the developers on midjourney today in the talk said that things have been changing so fast, we've gone through like 4 different art movements. Okay. And I think I like these guys. I like what they're doing, generally speaking, but I do think they kind of over talk what the social impact of what this can do, and what it is. And I've definitely done the same thing as far as like looking from my vantage point on what I think is the most important thing and just absolutely groundbreaking, and then not realizing that actually that was done 1,000 years ago. It's my ignorance of the past and of these subjects is really all that's on display, and not the glory and splendor of this wonderful new future that we're entering into. Yeah. You sly dog, you get me monologuing. Looking at the chat again. Have you used any of the Relay AI tools? Very cool tool for figuring lighting configurations. No, I think the closest thing I've used is in Photoshop. In the beta version, there's neural filters, and there's one where you can change the light direction on a face, which is pretty cool, pretty impressive. And actually, I could see if I can find those. I did some experiments with midjourney plus neural filters, and I'll have to see where I put these. So neural filters are like, I think it's kind of like our AI, but like with very specific tasks, and it's in Photoshop, or at least in the beta version. Let me see if I can find it. Where do I put things on this computer? No. I've got like a handful of things I'm trying to throw together. Sorry, I'm on the other screen here trying to find this thing. But I may be... Okay, here we go. Here's one. So this was an AI generated image. I was actually trying to make chicken soldiers, and apparently some terminology, maybe in different languages or whatever, like maybe a hen is another way to, another word for a woman. Dunno, beats me. I don't know why I started getting all these results that were like just women. So anyway, this is and no, I did not use the term chick or chickens. I used the term hen. It just weirded me out. Anyway, this is the image that came back from Midjourney, and this is really impressive. Obviously the flag's a little weird, and then the faces get a little wonky. The eyes are, like, if you zoom in on those, they get a little weird. And then in Photoshop, in the beta version, you've got these neural filters, and you can upscale the face. And so that's what was going on here. So this was an upscale. I put it at 75%, I think. And then I think I upscaled it again. And I don't remember what was going on with this one. Maybe this was like a mix. I did some kind of mix together. And so you can see you get much more fidelity on these. And in that, in those neural filters, you can do the upscale, and then you can go back in and you can change the eye direction, you can change the light direction and all that sort of thing. It's really impressive, just in terms of photo manipulation. It does some, interesting things. Like, so it took this photo, and you can see there was a whole bunch of grain in the original photo, and it took that grain and made them freckles, which was kind of an interesting interpretation. And you could see why it did that. So that was one test, and what I was doing with some of these was trying to figure out if I could get like some of the bad results from Midjourney that I liked the design but hated the faces, and see if we could like turn those into something. And generally the answer to that was no. It depended on the style. Let me see what we had. Like this, I ended up doing too much painting over on it, but let's see if we go. So there's this image, which, like, I don't know, like it's not that great, but it's greeble, it's something. And then using the neural filters from Photoshop, it interprets that face and crams this other face in there. Same with this. So this is a very similar, it's the same image, but like given another rendering pass in Midjourney. And then, same with that, and you get a completely different face, between those two. Another one, I think this I seem to remember being like just terrible. Neither filter really came up with anything great. Same with this one. This one you would not expect anything really good is going to come from that. And it's it's slightly better, but well, that's subjective. Like it's not great. And then this one, I think it took some coaxing. I think I had to like paint out some little bits and like paint a little shadow under the nose or something. And then that's what we got to eventually. But you can see there was just a lot of extra steps, kind of chopping things, moving it, lowering the intensity of the orange, and then running the filter again. And that was kind of is my theory with this, or my approach is like minimizing the amount of work to get a usable design. If I've got to like do all this, like I did so much adjusting in here just to get it ready for the neural filter to give me a basically cartoon face. I could have painted that in much shorter time. It took me a lot longer to learn how to do that, but it didn't particularly save me any time on that test. Yeah, so I'm reading the chat here. Jay says, a lot of advancements in many industries involved eliminating steps in the production chain. I think AI art cuts a lot of steps, making things cheaper for production. Yeah, I agree. And I think the positive potential of that is that we could potentially move our resources towards, if you're saving money on a film or something or a video game, you could potentially move your resources towards other aspects of the process to improve the end result. My pessimistic outlook is going to tell me that that's unlikely. I think we're going to allocate resources to increase profits rather than create better art. And oddly enough, I have an IP and a story that I'm developing that kind of goes off of that assumption that like we're going to live these really cheap lives and gonna have to relearn, kind of go through these cycles in humanity of well, okay, I'm not explaining it very well. Let me back up. The concept is that the technology for social media is just going to get better and better until we're basically connected and we feel what each other feels, and there's a lot of positive things that can come out of that. But I think that as human nature goes, we'll kind of become lazy and hedonistic, and what will ultimately result from that is that we'll have really strong personalities, which will be the loudest voices in this kind of singular hive species, right? That's kind of what we'll become as a hive species, and the loudest voices. So the most angry, or the most vengeful, or the biggest liar, or the positive things too. The most graceful, the most forgiving, and whatever. These will end up being the voices that we'll just kind of lend ourselves over to. We already kind of do this, and just looking at human nature, and I don't want to be pessimistic about it, but if we're just being honest, we're looking at social media. It's like, yeah, I listen to whoever it is, Jordan Peterson or whatever. It's like, well, okay, there's conversations to be had, but the thinking for yourself part is really important, right? And too often we share something, or we just let other people speak on our behalf. We share some headline, share some video, or whatever. And anyway, that's the point of where this is going. Is once we're all kind of potentially in this sci-fi world, we're all connected in a literal neural net. We're all kind of experiencing the same experiences, and feeling the same feelings, and thinking each other's thoughts. That will basically just, the weaker minds among us will just cede that mental ground to the stronger minds, and or the loudest voices, not necessarily the strong, the most intense. It's like, well, you might be upset, but you're not as upset as so and so your thoughts just aren't as loud, right? And so anyway, the concept of that is that will not necessarily be used for good, at least not at first. We'll have to discover as kind of a new hive mind species how to discipline ourselves to be to survive. Really, that's the kind of premise for the story. So anyway, that's a. Sorry if you just came into the chat and that's where you picked up like, oh, this dude's crazy. I mean, it's true, but I think that's part of human nature is really the point that I'm getting at, is that I think we will, if we have our needs met, we are just fine with chilling. Some of us will get bored and have to paint, lava waterfalls or whatever. But I'm not saying it's a good thing. Oh, we gotta get these reflections in there. We got this lava going on. I don't know. I actually don't think it was necessary to put those in there. Let's put them in as like kind of horizontal hashes here and there. Yeah, so Cam, you were saying Pav is your boss. Yeah, I definitely appreciate all the content he's put out. Again, with like being lazy, doing ZBrush stuff. If there's anything that I want to learn, I'm just like, well, I'll just get on the old YouTube and sit at the feet of the master. I'll just say what he's thinking, and I'll just do that. And it really is it speeds things up for sure for me. Especially with this not being, like my wheelhouse, my bread and butter is the 2D work, and then the 3D work, of course, I need for Fantastic Tanks and everything. And I want to continue to develop it, but not being tied to it every day of the week, it definitely makes it like it's like gear switching. It's like you gotta like think, okay, we're getting back into this. All right, how does that work? I know I've got to do this one thing, but it's not what I do every day. So they're just super helpful to just look it up. And the streams too, like that's just like drinking from the fire hose. He's just talking about all these different methods and like, oh, that's useful. Oh yeah, that's what I was wondering about that. It's hard to keep up. All right, what do we need to do here? We got to design this a little better. Looking at the chat, aren't we all just a little nutty? Yeah. What will the conflict be in this near nirvana world where needs are met? Will the oldest voices cause the problems, or loudest voices cause the problems? Yeah, that's part of it, because not all the loudest voices are good. Some of them are, and so what ends up happening, at least the way that I've conceptualized it, is that by listening to these voices by these individuals, they become kind of a pantheon. And so it's kind of the reverse of the Greek pantheon, where, or at least the way that we conceptualize it, is that the culture and the philosophies and so forth of the Greek culture developed these ideas that are kind of human universals. And then those ideas were then communicated and presented through personalities that were the Greek gods, right? So, the strength of Zeus and the you got weird, and that's literally one of the gods, and it's you're communicating these ideas of grace and truth and wisdom and strength and all these things as people. And so the idea here is that kind of gets flipped on its head, where it's like the people who most strongly represent those things de facto become the head of that human attribute. And so you have this kind of this pantheon where these strong minds are, or rather loud minds are running the show, and to some degree in conflict with each other. And part of that is you'll have one of the characters is Malice, and Malice visits this archive. The archive is basically when people die, their memories are loaded onto this, or rather stored somewhere. And so in this conception, you don't live forever. You're not alive in the machine, but anyone could go back and kind of relive and see the experiences. Okay, and so that's kind of Malice's thing. He goes back and he digs up old past sins, and that just kind of drives him, right? And then his conflict is with Guile, and so Guile's this character who more or less is running the show. He's kind of holding everything together by with the lies we need to believe to be a unified. Have a unified front. And part of the context there too is that there will be other networks, there are other people and other humans that are not tied into the same network, and to some degree we kind of view them as like or rather that one network, the primary network, will kind of view them as imposters, or whether it's a parasite or something, like they just have a view of them that they're not. It's like one animal fighting against another. They don't see them as human in the same way that they, as you would see others within your same network, because you don't feel their feelings or hear their thoughts or anything. So it's kind of like a subhuman kind of tension between them and other pockets of humanity that are on different networks. So it's like TikTok versus Facebook. I don't know. I say that jokingly, but the part of the conflict is that part of the conflict is group identity versus individualism. So the character that I'm exploring, like following, is Vengeance. And so Vengeance, I have him develop as a kind of as a faithful lieutenant. He's not really one of the Pantheon, but through the course of wars with these other human networks, he gets kind of disillusioned, and the idea is that he's just constantly fighting. He wants to be just a faithful lieutenant. He wants to believe until eventually just it's too much. And he can't. can no longer play along, right? And I don't think that's like I don't know, maybe that's a kind of a tired theme or something, but that particular character, the idea is in that he's punished for his crimes in one of these conflicts, and gets removed from the network, and then he discovers other human societies out there. There's another area that I'm working on, and that's a kind of this post-human, like they've evolved to accommodate their technology, right? So over time, they no longer really have a need for really to hold up their body weight, right? So their legs are kind of just like long and spindly kind of tendrils, and their hands and eyes have adapted to interface with their technology, right? And the idea with these is that they eventually come to the point where this is their adaptation to their technology has made them unsuited for their environment, their actual environment. And in a way, they're kind of alien, and they have a kind of a cult sect among them, and a religion that develops where they are trying to get back, right? And so they're kind of re-engineering their technology to push them back towards humanity. And these are they're perceived by the mainstream network, the main human organism, as this kind of strange, dangerous alien out there. And I haven't really fully developed how that ties in, but I would imagine that the character Guile, who's kind of keeping things together, he's kind of keeping that under the hat, like that these are actually humans, because it is the more convenient to view them as these alien, this foreign, enemy. And of course, in his exile, he's going to discover these things. And okay, yeah. You sent me down that rabbit hole. That is one of these ideas that I really want to develop. I put a list together of when I come up with different themes or whatever, or find something interesting, I'll throw it into a document, and give it a fighting chance, right? And once I've done that, then I can kind of weigh it out. I can compare it to other things, and so that idea is not a particularly new idea for me, and I have been working on it. I'll say playing with it, but Fantastic Tanks has taken the priority to be like, okay, I'm going to focus on this as my side project, for now, or as my personal development, kind of project, and then we'll return to this other, sci-fi idea once I'm satisfied with Fantastic Tanks. So, I'm still playing with it kind of in the background, but really only as something, some inspiration strikes to kind of maybe connect some dots or throw something more interesting in there. It really is, I would say, kind of in a feature creep stage where I'm not afraid to like throw in extra ideas, and probably later we'll have to prune a lot of that. But yeah, we'll get to that stage when we get to it. I have some of the artwork for it. I can let's see if I can find that. Pull that up. Potentially stuffed away. And nope, that's a different one. So the idea is that it is, or rather, the visual motif is that everything's very mechanical, not these kind of high. What we see today are, I think, these really kind of refined, like you could see like a prosthetic that has like the kind of Apple look to it, I'm really steering away from that and much more towards like, mechanical push rods and hydraulics and that sort of thing. And then, so part of the idea is that you have having this kind of pantheon. We're doing everything we can to keep these alive. So you might have like a normal lifespan of 80 to 100 years or whatever, but for the loudest voices among us, we're trying to keep them around forever and all time. And so it's kind of dystopian looking. But there's time to develop the visual language of it. Like all that could really change. Yep. All right. What if we put some like green in here? Let's see if I can do this with an overlay, just to make that orange pop a little more. Kind of reminds me of Mysteries of the Sith, the Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2, old game. Going back to my childhood here, but all right, this is probably too harsh. I'm gonna go maybe a little bluer with that. So either blue, green, or gray, I think, would make this feel have a higher potential for contrast. Looking at the chat. I like this show at Sweet Concepts. I'm going to go for a walk. Enjoy the rest of your stream. Yeah, thanks for joining in, and thanks for the conversation. It's been great. All right, so implementing some color contrast. And, as we do, we'll probably put it in, dial it back, try to find the sweet spot. I'm already pushing it too far, but What are you going to do about it? That's what everyone came for, is the humming Irish tunes. You're welcome. Wow. The multi-talented. he can sing. I'm sorry. I'm losing my mind over here. I think I might push this more towards blue. Let's go much darker in the foreground here, so we're just going to push all this down. Down you go. Easy, easy. Zoom out. Look at that. Oh, sorry. I know. The humming it's no good. No good. No good. I'm only saying that that's a cry for help. I'm just begging someone to say, no, it's great, Eric. Give us more. What cruelty to subject you all to that, and what crueler still to encourage someone to make a fool of themselves in front of a live audience. But that's why we're here, isn't it? All right, then we'll go a little brighter down here. I got that song. It's in my head, it's in my soul, it's got to come out. I am fighting it, fighting for you guys. You're welcome. We want that to be brighter as it's got the light behind it? Or do we want that to be darker than the light behind it? That is it illuminated by this light coming through? Or is it thick and not allowing the light to pass through it? We may never have an answer. I don't know what I'm doing up here. The home stream. You could play music during the stream. You know, I could. I don't know what the legality of all that is. I actually don't really listen to much music when I work. I used to. I kind of needed it to like set the rhythm, set the pace, or the mood or whatever. Sometimes I will go on themusicbed.com, which is like a music licensing site for like commercials and stuff like that. And I used to use that for marketing stuff when I was doing that. And it will allow you to kind of search by. It has really powerful search tools. It's like beats per minute, style, whether there's lyrics in it, artists and all that kind of stuff. And so you can really kind of fine tune and find what you want for a project. So that's what it's intended for. And actually, I have some music that I put in there associated with like Fantastic Tanks or different projects that I'm working on, kind of thinking like, okay, if this is the vibe that I'm going for, then, when the time comes, I can contact these artists and see if we can, come up with something custom for the franchise. But anyway, the playlist that I would have off of that, I would use for some projects. But what ends up happening for me now is that if I'm in like render mode, I'm just kind of like, I've got a face and I'm got to get the lighting right on it or whatever. Music is great. If I'm in design mode, I'm trying to make a thing work. I'm trying to sort something out. Give it a visual hierarchy. I cannot have music. It's just, it makes me frustrated. It's noise in my ear that just adds complexity to what I'm trying to do. So I'm gonna be that guy and say that most of my work lately has been more in the realm of design and less in the realm of rendering. And I think that's just part of like I think that's just part of the development process of an artist. I could be wrong. I could be like, I'm on like step 3 and someone at step 10 is like, nah, you got to get the music back in there, man. But like, I really feel like most of the time I'm thinking about how to make an image work and I don't care about the rendering. The rendering has almost become second nature to where it just doesn't matter. And I do, obviously I think that there's room for growth there. I'm not saying like, oh, I got that figured out, I'm like 100% good, but like, it's just not as important. And over the years, I've developed a bit of a shorthand for some things. So like to block in shadows, there's, back in the day, I would be much more tempted to really slow down and kind of blend things and like, that Napoleon Dynamite quote, like I spent 3 hours on shading your upper lip, no, like if you've got a shorthand for like a couple brush strokes and you've got a believable hard shadow for, the nose is casting a shadow or something, then that's it. That's all you need. Partly that's the type of work that I do where I don't have to like get in there and get like super fine with things. So if I don't have to, then I guess that's just something not a area that I find necessary to develop. Whereas when I was starting, that was like, the coolest thing ever to be able to like, render something and get the super soft shading, and you're just really interested in it, and then kind of like we were talking about earlier, that the utility kicks in, and you just don't need to do that anymore, or not to the same degree. And so anyway, as far as music goes, music is much more useful, palatable, enjoyable when it's a part of that process, and is almost obnoxious when I'm trying to concentrate on a design. What is this guy talking about? He speaks of what he does not know. That'll be my tagline. The man who speaks of things he does not understand. I gotta get those shapes in there. Figure out all these shape-a-majiggies. Technical term for the majiggies. Shape-a-majiggies. Okay, I will see myself to the door now. My apologies. You get a full refund. No, sorry, I can't give you your, however long it's been, 2 hours back. That I do not control. All right, I think what I want to do here, we'll go to our chunky smudge brush, and we'll just get chunky up in here. Sample all layers. I will admit that the lazy part of me is almost willing to, like, give me an AI that I can put all of my artwork in it, and then it would just clone me and just do, just make a bunch of tanks for me. That way I can get back to the things that really matter, like not creating the art that I love. Wait a minute. And that's when my rationality kicks back in, and I go, I started doing this because I like making art. Maybe I should nurture that. And nothing really has changed. I still love it. It's a weird relationship with a created thing, right? You want to do more and more, and then it can become a little bit of a chore. Or it can become it can hang over you like a guilty conscience. Like, why didn't you make that thing? You know you like making things. Make a thing. And then you just feel guilty about it. And then you go, okay, fine, I'll make a thing. And then you get in there and you're like, I love this. Why was this like pulling teeth to get started? Laziness, I guess. We're making a thing. We're making it twice. Oh, that hurts. The hum stream. Welcome aboard. Actually, I think the statistics will probably show that this is where people get off the train. Okay, well, this was our overlay layer, which we said we were going to dial back, probably should do it. We could mask it out as well, because I've used it quite a bit in here to get that effect. Yeah, we'll add a mask and we'll go G for gradient tool. And we'll kind of go gray with that. And let's, no, I actually like that part. We'll mask out the really dark areas because I don't think it needed to go, quite that dark. I get, so I'm looking at the chat. You could play music during stream. That makes sense. I get distracted way too often when working. Yeah, I've probably mentioned this like a million times on the stream, but like, are you familiar with the book Flow and or Deep Work? I think Deep Work is Cal Newport. I think that was based on the concept from Flow. And basically, the idea is that you need to focus on your work, and in order to do so, you have to eliminate distractions and really eliminate them. It's the idea is that if you say turn off your phone and your notifications, and you don't have music going, and you don't have anyone over your shoulder talking to you, and you're just looking at your work, you don't have YouTube, you don't have a tutorial running, anything, that about 40 minutes into it, things are going to start clicking. They're going to start making sense. And you're just going to feel like, okay, all of that lead up was just to get you in the state of mind and have the clarity, kind of the, what's the term, the kind of the salient, view on what you're doing. And I find that to be true for me. That it really is about 40 minutes in, I'm like, okay, this makes sense. And the idea is that if you get a distraction, a chirp on your phone or whatever, the clock has to reset. Like it actually just ruins the focused attention on solving that problem. And in our case, design problem. So anyway, I'm much more an advocate of this now. It's really hard. I'm just gonna be frank. Like, as a father of 5 homeschooled kiddos, they're not all homeschooled. Some of them aren't school age yet. But a father of 5. You can't just say, yeah, okay, I'm gonna just be gone and just do this thing for hours on end and ignore you, right? I mean, you could, but you'd be a terrible, that would be a terrible relationship to have. So, or it's not the relationship that I want to have with my kids. Let's just make it that clear. And so, blocking out that time, I mean, that's partly why I do the streams at night. They are in bed. And with the exception of, hey, I need to get up in the morning, I can take as long as I need to get into that kind of focused attention. And hammer something out. I think that's a real thing. It seems to coincide with how I work. And if I have to switch tasks, that's even worse. I just got to think about, okay, all right, so I was sketching or I was working in oil. I think some things do transition well enough, like digital painting to oil painting to sketching. Those are pretty close. You're still using the same faculty to solve your problems, I think. But if I go from like 2D to 3D, texturing to modeling to whatever, administrative stuff, I mean, it will reset the clock. No doubt about it. I'm not convinced that yellow color is good. So I'm going to come back in with this more orange tone. And then I think I need some of this red in here. We gotta show that that lava is just a glowing in there. Just down in there, that's all. Just like that. A little bit of happy lava right there. This also kind of reminds me of Die by the Sword. You guys remember that game? I think it was like the first game with like an actual free, like you could move, like you moving the mouse around or the controls around, controlled which direction the sword went. Rather than like I press a button and it swings the sword in a predetermined path. And that was really well before its time with that. Graphics were okay for the time, but it had this, I seem to remember you started out in this kind of underground, hellish looking environment. Should we have this like piling up and hardening, turning into rock down here? I don't know, kind of hate it. Not all ideas are good. Some of them are just really bad. Okay, I think we need to zoom in. Have a look around. I think it would probably make sense to maybe chop up the image or use the liquefy tool. See, I think I just got carried away making all these different things. I was just kind of mindlessly doing whatever I do, and then actually making it interesting is going to be another ball of wax here. So I think we need to sort it out a little bit more. So if you get like a layer here, right, in that background, and we could probably push this even farther back right here, you know, to continue that motif. Maybe push this back here a little. I don't know what that's all about. These, I mean, I threw those vertical lines in there, but who knows? Actually, it might be kind of cool. Like, let's just see what it would be like to do like these little, like, stalagmite lava piles. Why not? Who's going to tell us no? Got to get in there, get that little splash thing going on, you know. It's like, hey, I'm gonna run down this surface. Here, let's do and then we'll have this kind of follow that smokiness there. Don't make me go look at reference of lava. I mean, no, that's the right thing to do. Normally we could do that, but we're streaming right now. We got work to do. We're too busy to do this work right. Okay. The smoke in the background. I think back here it's going to start getting a little more towards this orange. You know, it's going to look more pinkish because it's picking up more light from behind it. And maybe this one will have like, it's kind of coming up, clustering up against this wall into one mass. Maybe we have this smoke. Could lighten here, you know, could be a brighter. You catch that light behind it. Maybe we do that here as well. I don't know. I want to do that. I want to tread carefully on that one. As he treads brazenly on that one. Yeah. I don't know if I prefer this like grayer smoke to that lighter, or even, I don't know, blending it to make it appear as though it's, I don't know. I do not know. I think I might just take that local color and just blend it right in, rather than adding another one and fighting against it. Maybe have this do some counter change here. You know, so we got that bright color back there, and then maybe we bring the bright into here, and then take this orange here, and then as we come down into these darker areas, that becomes the same value that we use there. I don't know. Let's zoom out. And it's gotten all literal and cartoony looking. So we bring in the smudge brush and we just start making making a mess. That's how we do it. Let's put like a rock pillar back there. Gotta make this cave look like it's sustainable. Sustainable lava cave. Just sounds like a good job for, I don't know, government employee. And make sure those lava caves stay around for generations to come. I want my kids to be able to enjoy those lava caves. Making a mess in here. Making a mess. We're making it twice. Alright. I had said something in a past life about using the liquefy tool to clean up these messes. And did I mean that? Only one way to find out. Let's use the smudge brush instead. And see if this will do the job. And if it does, then we won't have to liquefy anything. But if it does not, then liquefy we must. what I like about the Smudge Brush is just how rough it is. It just is irreverent. Doesn't care. We spent all this time noodling about. It says, get out of my way. I got some paint to smudge around. And I can respect that. Kind of want this to be like this, yeah, that kind of shape right there. Kind of this dome, inverted bowl. Well, yeah, just a plain old regular bowl. Maybe we'll keep playing off of that motif here. This shape will be a bowl. This shape will be a bowl. You get to be a bowl over here. And maybe this. We'll get a little bit of extra color so that it's not quite black. That way we can move that black that's right here up higher and push this other piece back in space. It's going to be awesome. Everyone's going to love it. They're going to be talking about it for generations. They're going to be like, hey, you see that? Remember that one live stream? That one night? It was amazing. The one with the humming? Yeah, that's the one. That was the one. Remember the bowl? Oh, who could forget? The bowl shape. There it is. Let's get that smoky shape there too. I think we can limit that. These lava flows here will make them less. They're too big. Too wide. That's a lot of steamy looking lava there. Needs to be chunky. Chunky looking lava. All of our hopes and dreams rest on these. Again, what's going on? Somebody make it stop. You got it. Another bowl shape. Here we go. How about you guys? You gonna join the bowl party? Here we go. Right up there. Right up there. There we go. Now we're talking. This lava is not coming from anywhere. I don't want to get technical about this lava cave. But if that lava is going to be flowing off of there, we'll just say it's coming from the subsurface. Because we can. And as I usually say, we're not very good at random. You know, it just doesn't work for us. Things end up getting really evenly spaced. So I'm trying to figure out which one of you must go. I mean, do you need to go like all the way over there? Maybe that's gonna go up. Goes up. Maybe this comes down. And maybe that. Should that go up or down or across? Hard to say. Man, I love this brush. You can just transform a painting in no time. Okay, you know what? I like this thing, but it's in the wrong spot. I'll just move it. Maybe I should hire a DJ. And I won't even have to hear any music. You guys you throw it on there, you say, alright. What am I saying, hire a DJ? We're talking about AI all this time. I'm gonna get a bot. I'll get a bot in here. But what about the DJing industry? Won't that upset the market? What am I doing? It's a mystery. None can quite ascertain. What's it gonna be? Trying to mix in some of these colors to smooth out some of the transitions here. I don't even know why. These two images weren't really necessarily connected, but now they are. Alright, well, you know what we gotta do? We gotta make another bowl shape here. It's part of the game. Price to play. See, I stopped myself that time. You're welcome. What is he doing? He's making a mess. Making a huge mess. Too much contrast there. We gotta push that back. Push it back. I don't know. I like this thing. It's a little shape back there. I think it's too dark, but I still like it. become emotionally attached to it. Can't let it go. Alright, these little fiddly bits here, neat as they are, need to be kind of downplayed, I think. I say I like that bowl shape, I just want it lower. Nothing wrong with it. Oh boy. I'm gonna check the chat real quick here. Gonna hop out for the night. It was good catching the stream. Yeah, thanks for joining in. And have to catch up again soon. I don't necessarily like this as it is. Okay, I don't want that there, because then that starts to look like it's associated with this, which I don't want. All right, I'm going to do a new layer, and I'm just going to go in, I think with like a soft brush, and just kind of blend some of these things. There we go. And we'll do some of that. We'll push this all back. Grab some of that. Give some atmosphere there. I don't know that we need that bright, but I'll go bring some in here. Yeah, I don't know about that. We'll knock some of that out. Yeah, I don't know how heavy I want that to be. The light coming in there. Yeah, I think we'll use the smudge. Gonna break that up a little bit. see. I think that shape is less interesting than it was just a second ago. This guy's just messing up all the shapes here. Okay. Well, I think it would appear to me that we are reaching the point that we've got to be done. There might be a couple of things here that feel a little off. Though it might be interesting to catch some of that light there. Give that a little rim. I don't know, now we gotta risk it with this smudge brush, smudging that all up. in there. Nah, don't like it. I like it, you know, just as a basic rim on this one, just like that. I think maybe a little bit there, and then if we just rough it up just a little bit. And this could probably be a little bit tighter. There. Okay, let's zoom in. We got a mess. We got a mess on our hands. But it's a fun mess. We got some crazy acolytes up in here. They just need a few stripes, that's all. He's got the basketball head. Very important in the fire culture to have the basketball head. Okay, well, we gotta do what we gotta do. We gotta do the curves, and we must absolutely must do a color balance. Let's zoom out and look at this as a whole. Entire image. I think I prefer that darker version to this lighter version. This seems to kind of bring the values in to a more controlled, I don't know, lights, mids, and darks, you know. Okay. We can do, with this we might just go luminosity, so that way we keep all of our color. If we go normal, changes the colors a little bit. Normal versus luminosity. I like luminosity better in the cave shadow areas. I think I like normal better in the light out here. But I'm just going to go with luminosity. And then we'll go color balance. What are we on? Midtones? shadows. Do we want to try to get some of that green in there to get that real punchy? Could be more subtle with it, you know. AKA extreme. Yeah, let's go with the subtle. Go highlights. Too much red. He's not kidding around with that yellow. I tend to prefer the highlights being kind of white balanced, basically. But this context might not be the best for it. Yeah, I think we need to stick with our reds and yellows. It's interesting. It's a pretty subtle change, but it does change it. I guess we could crop it. Something like that. But actually, I don't know, it makes me think that what we could do is do a new layer. We'll do a lighter color. Or a smudge. Oh, gotta go sample all layers. Bring this in. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about the shape. Come on. Gotta go back. Mm. All right, what damage have we done? Just need something. We'll just go with that for now. Okay, so as usual, we've made a mess. Made a big old mess here. But I kind of like this mess. If I may say so myself. So I think now would be the time to call it good. It looks like something's up with my stream, actually. I'm looking over at Google. It says my current audio bitrate is 0. I don't know what that's all about, but I guess that is what it is. So, all right, thanks for joining in tonight. And this is where we ended up. Weird one, but fun. All right, good conversation, and it's good to be back and painting and having a good time. So, all right, have a good night. Hopefully we'll see you next week.